Welcome to Read Your Comics. Today I am looking at Spider-Man's Tangled Web number 10. I want to take a look at this issue by Kaare Andrews. He was kind of a rising star around the time this came out. He was mostly doing cover work. He'd probably done some interiors before this, I'm not really sure. And the Spider-Man series was kind of an anthology of different creators getting to take turns and telling kind of offbeat Spider-Man stories. Oftentimes, these were not really meant to be in continuity. This was during this was 2002, so this was during kind of the early days still of Joe Quesada's tenure at Marvel, and Marvel was doing a good job of like throwing anything at the wall back then. They didn't try to stick just rigidly to the old way of doing things. They brought in different people with different perspectives to do different things. And while I don't know Kari's background outside of the Marvel stuff he did, he was doing Hulk covers for sure at the time and probably other things as well. I think he did some amazing Spider-Man covers as well. So they may have just been kind of throwing him like a chance to try something different and do some interiors as well. He's a digital artist, I think, by trade. This is definitely done digitally. One thing about Kaare Andrews is he can really vary his style up pretty dramatically to the point that makes it kind of hard to identify his work. He can do a very animated style. He can do a very realistic style. He can do kind of something in between, a painted style. I've even seen some of his work that just uses flat colors and stuff. So he's kind of all over the place in that regard. Super talented. Um, Definitely kind of pushed digital art in comics in a new direction at this time. I would say for the better, really. I have mixed feelings about how digital art really works in comics, but I do think it's a very useful tool for artists to use, but I don't necessarily want all comics to go that direction. This is a striking cover, though. I love this cover. You've got a little kid sitting in front of a TV screen with the 1967 Spider-Man cartoon on the TV and a bowl of cereal. I mean, this invokes so many feelings of watching Saturday morning cartoons with that bowl of cereal in your lap. Even though I didn't grow up with this cartoon, I had a different Spider-Man cartoon in the 80s. I do love this cartoon, and I did know it at this point when this book came out. I didn't really pick up this title issue one on. It was very much driven by who the creator was doing the story at the time. And Kaare Andrews was definitely somebody I was interested in because of his cover work. So this cover really made this an intriguing issue. He gets to write and draw this issue. It is just a one-off. Kind of like the cover here, it starts with it's an obvious TV boundary. We've got square boundaries on each one, and there's this cartoony character. Like I said, we're going to see all styles of his work. He does different things, and here he's definitely doing a cartoony looking character that is on the TV. But then we turn the page, and we're immediately dropped into some more realism style of art that kind of invokes some of what Alex Ross was doing with paint, but this is done digitally. Great use of like just light. We're in a dark room. You could tell this is the side of a television. I don't know about the printing, like how this looked when he was creating it. It's very dark in spots where I think it's like he wants it to be dark, but it's almost so dark it's hard to see what's going on in the screen. But you can definitely kind of see an outline of the box here in the TV and just a little bit of glow coming off, hitting the kid in the face, but the kid's a little bit more lit up to kind of shine. And he's watching this Insect Man, which is very much a riff on Spider-Man. So at this point, you're kind of wondering, are we living in the Marvel universe? Is this kind of like a real world story of a kid inspired by Spider-Man, or what's going on? It's not very clear at this point. And with the randomness of this Tangled Web title, it's still not clear. I'm engaged by the art so far, so you just keep going, right? You've got one kid in the background, an older kid in the background, talking on the phone to a girl. He's telling her that he can't go out. But he's having a hard time explaining to her it's because he has to stay and watch his little brother. And she says she's going to go to the mall or whatever with another boy, which irritates him. So now older brother's annoyed that he has to stay home with little brother and take care of him while the girl he likes gets to go out with another dude. So he picks up the cereal. You get this mom from the background coughing, telling the boys to settle down. Don't make me get out of bed. Cough, cough. And he's like, oh, great. She's out of meds again. Mom's been crying a lot. It kind of gives him a look. Yeah, I know. Then he comes in and starts kind of getting on the little brother about watching the cartoons. Really, the older brother's just in a bad mood. But we're getting the sense that, like, they've got a lot going on in their life. Obviously, they got a sick mom. He's having to kind of be the father figure as we get in here, where the brother's just kind of dissing superheroes and the thought of them and stuff, that dad left these comics behind. I don't know why you even want them. The younger brother makes a snide remark that he didn't leave you anything. And you get a lot of emotion in these faces. He thinks about it for a minute. He's like, I didn't want anything from that loser. And he turns off the TV on the little brother. Now, I thought that would just start a big fight immediately, because that's what would happen in my house with my kids. The boy just turns it on, and they just basically have a back and forth about the value of superheroes. And then you get the older brother essentially, this is where he's like hinting towards there are superheroes in real life, but they're really just kind of jerks running around in costumes, just doing whatever they want and causing a bunch of damage wherever they go. And the kid is kind of like, no, that's not exactly true. I go back and forth between the realism in these faces and how much I like it. It's almost photographic realism, whereas Alex Ross's realism, but it's still painted in a way that it's not trying to cross that uncanny valley of like, is this photographic or is this a painting? I mean, you can always tell if Alex Ross is a painting, right? This goes kind of like is this just like a degraded quality photograph? Especially some of these poses with the kid and stuff, and then these get more simplistic in their like use of color to create the figure work there. So in that regard, I think this kind of goes back and forth in that style, and I don't know if it quite lands like it should. The kid said Spider-Man's a good hero, and the brother's like, no, it's not. When all of a sudden, crash! And there's a hole in their wall. And as they look over through the wreckage, you faintly see some like red boots and a red hand just kind of laying there. And the little kid's like, Spider-Man? And then another figure coming in right here. As the kid's like, oh, we need to get out of here. He's like, that's Spider-Man. And you just get little bits of Spider-Man in this, really. You get a little bit of his mask, and he's kind of, he took a hard hit from somebody. And then we see these eyes with the electricity coming out. And this hand that's just got a little bit of glow going around it. Like, take a walk, kids. I got something to do with the bug. And it's Electro. And you get everything from this kid's perspective, really. Like, he's big. You don't really see his face right here. You just kind of see his body. It's effective in this particular storytelling, I think. I don't know that this is a beautifully illustrated page. The darkness of it adds and distracts from it, especially since you don't get to see his full mask. There's enough of him there to be like, this is Electro. This is a poorly placed ad to go with this artwork. Because when I was reading this, I went like, wait, is this part of this? No, these hands are a photograph. It confused me for a second, but yes, it's just an ad, a poorly placed ad, I feel like. There you get the mask, and it's hard to probably tell on the screen, but there's just these little pops of white mixed in with that glowing yellow, which is pretty cool. I like the electricity here. The computer illustration aspect of this really makes that coloring, just that electric feel to it, come off the page. Again, we kind of get more to this like simplistic coloring. It takes some of the realism out of it, and the back and forth there is, I think I think it loses something. It's like either go full realistic or go for this style. I think there was some indecision there, or maybe conscious decision, and I just don't understand the thought process behind it. So Electro's charging up. The older brother wants to run away. The little boy disappears when all of a sudden you see his toy he was playing with, a bug man. He throws it and he hits Electro, and it comes apart at the waist. Pretty crappy toy, if you ask me, if it just bounces off somebody's head and breaks. It's a pretty interesting shot of Iron Man. I didn't know Mike Grell did an Iron Man run. I was not really reading Iron Man at this time. And we're back to some closer to the realism here. The little kid, yells at Electro to leave him alone. And it's an interesting idea to not ever fully show the faces here. You just get like a nose, some crackling teeth, and he just gives the kid like just a little shock and throws him off. And this is the stuff, I'm sure he just created like this and reused it just close up. You can do that in digital. And again, it's this back and forth. Like this looks pretty, that verge of fuzzy photograph. This looks verge of fuzzy photograph and that. But this looks more stripped down, like posterized almost. Before we get back to the older brother standing up to say, stay away from him. And that's a good angle, good shot. And that's the best shot we get of like a person, really. Then Electro is here, kind of calling the kid out. He's like, oh, do you stand up against bullies at school and stuff? You think you're some kind of hot shot? And he's like, I didn't think so. As a tear drops from the kid's eye, Electro's fingers charging up like he's going to shock the older brother. When you get a thwip on the tip of the finger and pulls him back. And you go, wow. Just get these little hints of Spider-Man. Just like, his arm, edge of his body right here. Pulls Electro back. Very dark. You see the fight happen. Where, Spider-Man just kind of, with the brothers watching, especially the little brother. Most of the focus is on the little brother watching. You get the backside of Spider-Man. Pretty good muscular work in there and stuff. And he takes Electro out. And that's that on the superhero fight aspect of it. And he's like, yay! And then again, we don't get full shots of Spider-Man. It's just from a kid's perspective, looking up at his chest. Spider-Man basically saying like, where's your mom? She's in the back room. Where's your dad? We don't have a daddy anymore. I get where they're going. It's kind of a silly line. Kids don't really talk like that. And the older brother just kind of stares him down. He's like, sorry guys, I can relate. Oh really? A guy like you? Trust me. So pretty touching moment there with Spider-Man and these kids. He reaches into his sock to apologize for the hole, pulls out an envelope that says rent on it, which is presumably Peter Parker's rent money, and gives it to them for the trouble of damaging their house. He webs together the little toy, which that's going to dissolve in 2 hours and fall apart, but I guess cool. Spider-Man webbed up my toy. Webs it up. I like how this is set up too. It's just this little bit of very nonchalant, just shooting the web out sideways. Usually when you see Spider-Man shoot web, it's very action-packed. It's like coming at the camera or something, he might be making something like a shield or something and just kind of like webbing it up real quick, but this is just something simple, just like and it's over. Pretty neat. Gives the kid his bug boy or insect man, whatever it was called. There he is again. And then the older brother kind of goes off like, you think $500 is gonna fix everything? No, it's not. The good guys can't always save the world. Sometimes we just do what we can. Eat it and eat our broccoli. Little Spider-Man humor. And he picks up Electro and takes off. Hope everything works out. And they just watch as it goes through the hole. The little brother, I love broccoli. Then he picks up the TV. Fortunately, it still works, right? When they turn it on, the mom's yelling at him to turn the, not here yet, but they turn the TV back on for the end of Insect Man, and they do the "with great power comes great responsibility" in there. That was right. It was right there that they say. He's like, "Yeah, then what comes with no power? With great power comes great responsibility." Yeah, then what comes with no power? You're responsible for me, aren't you, Jack? Yeah, you bet I am. So now the brothers have a bonding moment after that 3 minutes or whatever it was of Spider-Man and Electro crashing into the apartment. And they sit there and watch the rest of the cartoon while the mom yells to close the windows. It's freezing in here. And that wraps up our story. So, Ray of Light by Kaare Andrews. He did everything, written and illustrated. He didn't do the lettering. Axel Alonso was the assistant editor, kind of moving up the ladder. There's Joe Quesada, Bill Jemas. Not much more there. Pretty interesting issue of Spider-Man's Tangled Web. A little offbeat story. In some ways, it kind of reminds me of The Kid Who Collects Spider-Man, if you've ever read that. I think it's in Amazing Spider-Man 248, which is the story of Spider-Man revealing his identity to a child with terminally ill cancer. So not quite as sad and touching as that, but it's in that vein. It's in, of storytelling. This did take place shortly after 9/11 too. So, take that into context of when this came out. I guess another quick thing to point out is the cardstock cover on this book. This was considered kind of a prestige book of the time. It was an interesting series. Like I said, they really let just different people that probably didn't want to do a long run on Amazing Spider-Man or any other Spider-Man title, but maybe had a Spider-Man story in them, and just let them play in the sandbox. And it was an interesting time for Marvel. Probably, other than the 1960s, probably one of the most explosive and creative, because you do get random one-off stories like this. Anyway, that's all I got for today. Until next time, read your comics.